Al Pacino has always been a paradox, an intense, brooding figure on screen, yet a fiercely private man in love. From iconic performances in The Godfather to Scarface, his career shaped cinema. But behind the scenes, his love life has quietly mirrored his mystique. Now let's dive into the full romantic history and meet the women who were part of this unforgettable journey. Al Pacino met Jill Clayburgh in the late 1960s through New York's theater circuit, where both were rising stars grounded in method acting and downtown grit. They shared a small apartment during their early struggling years, two artists living on dreams and coffee, rehearsing lines in the half-light of winter mornings. Their relationship was quiet, but layered, emotionally rich, often described by friends as soulful. There were no screaming headlines, no tabloid spectacles. Instead, they were seen side by side at off-Broadway plays, indie film premieres, and the occasional dimly lit cafe in the Village. As Pacino's career began to accelerate with The Panic in Needle Park and then The Godfather, the dynamic subtly shifted. Clayburgh, a serious talent in her own right, once said, "It was hard watching someone you love become a phenomenon while you're still waiting for your turn." Their breakup was quiet. No scandal, just two paths diverging. And though they would never reunite, the tenderness between them seemed to linger, like the last line of a forgotten play still echoing on stage. They met through mutual friends in the film industry, two enigmatic figures drawn to each other's quiet intensity. Tuesday Weld, already known for her haunting performances, shared Pacino's preference for privacy and emotional depth. Their romance was brief, almost like a secret kept between scenes. They were rarely seen together in public, and yet the few images that surfaced, shadowed by flashbulbs and velvet ropes, hinted at something quietly magnetic. It wasn't built to last. Weld once reflected that both she and Al were too inward for the kind of relationship that demands routine. They drifted apart within a year. But in interviews years later, Pacino described her as a beautiful spirit, a quiet acknowledgement that some connections never fully fade, even when love does. Al Pacino met Swiss actress Marthe Keller on the set of Bobby Deerfield in 1976. Their on-screen chemistry quickly translated into a real-life romance that spanned continents and captivated quiet corners of the press. Keller, elegant and introspective, brought a European sophistication to Pacino's world. They were often seen in Paris, strolling along the Seine or attending small theater performances. Their relationship had an almost cinematic calm, two actors deeply immersed in their craft, yet finding space for something tender between projects. While the American press remained relatively distant, European outlets followed them closely. Interviews from the time suggest a mutual admiration. Pacino once said she had an honesty that cuts through everything. By 1978, the relationship began to dissolve under the weight of distance and diverging careers. There was no public fallout, just two artists quietly stepping away, carrying a season of their lives that would remain gently untouched. Like a foreign film, you remember more for its mood than its ending. Their story began on the set of The Godfather in 1971. Diane Keaton was quirky, radiant, and intellectually sharp. Al Pacino was quiet, brooding, magnetic. As Michael and Kay's fictional relationship unfolded on screen, something deeper stirred behind the scenes, a connection that would span 2 tumultuous decades. Their romance was marked by long silences, unexpected reunions, and a love that never quite knew how to settle. Keaton brought lightness into Pacino's often somber orbit, while he grounded her whirlwind energy. They never married, but the emotional weight of their relationship seemed to exceed labels. Keaton famously said in an interview, "Al was the love of my life, but he wouldn't commit." That longing, that pull toward something just out of reach, defined their dynamic. They were seen at premieres, award shows, and private dinners, always close, but never quite stable. Pacino, deeply private, rarely spoke about her publicly, but friends say she was one of the few who could make him laugh uncontrollably, disarm him entirely. Their final separation came in the early 90s. Keaton later admitted she gave him an ultimatum: marriage or parting ways. Pacino chose solitude. And yet, they never disappeared from each other's lives. Decades later, Keaton would still smile at the mention of his name. There were no children, no wedding photos, no public closure, just an unresolved tenderness that lingered, a love both too large to define and too fragile to hold. In many ways, Diane Keaton remains the emotional shadow of Pacino's most private moments, a chapter that was never closed, only paused, a name that returns like a line from a film you can't forget, not because of how it ended, but because of how deeply it once mattered. Al Pacino and Kathleen Quinlan crossed paths in the early 1980s, introduced through mutual friends in the industry during a period when both were navigating intense career momentum. Quinlan, known for her quietly compelling screen presence, shared Pacino's passion for introspective roles and emotional authenticity. Their relationship was low profile, almost deliberately so. Rarely seen on red carpets or in the tabloids, they preferred private dinners and long conversations behind closed doors. Those close to them described a connection rooted in mutual respect and creative admiration rather than spectacle. Still, the press took occasional notice, especially during awards season, when their brief appearances together stirred rumors of something deeper. But as their careers pulled them in different directions, the relationship quietly ended. There were no harsh words or public statements, just a quiet parting. Two actors who understood that sometimes timing writes the final act. Mimi Rogers and Al Pacino were first live, inked in the mid-1980s, introduced through industry circles during a time when both were navigating the fringes of stardom and reinvention. Rogers, thoughtful and sharp-witted, had a quiet magnetism that contrasted Pacino's intense energy. Their relationship remained largely off the radar. No magazine spreads, no red carpet declarations. But insiders noted a subtle companionship, one built more on privacy than publicity. Rogers, who would later marry Tom Cruise, once hinted that her early relationships helped shape how she saw the instability of Hollywood romance. Though never confirmed in detail, her time with Pacino was marked by a sense of calm, an interlude before their lives would take dramatically different turns. By 1990, the connection faded without noise. No scandal, no fallout. Just two careers drifting apart, leaving behind a footnote in each other's history. Quiet, steady, and largely unwritten. Lyndall Hobbs, an Australian director with a flair for visual storytelling, met Al Pacino in the creative circles of Los Angeles during the late 1980s. Their relationship was a quiet intermission in Pacino's otherwise guarded romantic timeline. Unlike many of his earlier connections, this one unfolded more privately. Occasional art gallery visits, European getaways, and moments far from flashing bulbs. Hobbs, independent and creatively driven, matched Pacino's introspective nature in unexpected ways. There was little media buzz, only the occasional mention in film columns or low-resolution paparazzi stills. No drama, no spectacle, just a chapter lived mostly off-stage. Eventually, they drifted apart, their lives pulled by different projects and places. But in later interviews, Hobbs described their time together as warm and real, a brief, meaningful pause in two careers, otherwise shaped by movement and noise. When Al Pacino met Beverly D'Angelo in the mid-1990s, he was already a legendary figure, and she was a well-established actress known for both comedic and dramatic roles. But behind the fame, both longed for something grounding. Their relationship began quietly, a slow, steady unfolding away from the camera's eye. Unlike many of Pacino's earlier romances, this one grew deeper over time. In 2001, the couple welcomed twins, a boy and a girl, a turning point that shifted Pacino into a rare chapter of domestic life. Friends recall seeing a new softness in him during these years, a warmth that only fatherhood could unlock. D'Angelo, witty and candid, brought humor and stability into his world. Despite the joy of parenthood, their romantic relationship wasn't without challenges. Schedules, distance, and fundamentally different rhythms eventually created space between them. In 2003, they parted ways as partners but remained committed co-parents. In interviews, D'Angelo later reflected, I lived with Al for 7 years, and we have beautiful children together. Our connection never ended. It just changed shape. Even after their breakup, they continued appearing together at events for their kids, keeping their private bond intact. There were no scandals, no courtroom battles, only a quiet agreement to protect what they had built. Their relationship remains one of the most defining in Pacino's personal life, not because it ended in a wedding or tabloid drama, but because it gave him something rare, a sense of family. And in the end, that mattered more than anything the cameras could ever capture. Al Pacino began dating Argentine actress and model Lucila Solá in 2008. Introduced through mutual friends in the Los Angeles film circuit, their relationship emerged at a time when Pacino was entering a more reflective phase of his life. Solá, more than 35 years his junior, brought a quiet elegance and youthful calm into his world. Despite the age gap, the relationship lasted nearly 7 years, a rare stretch of stability in Pacino's famously private romantic history. They were photographed together at film premieres in Venice, Cannes, and New York, with Solá often by his side during awards season. Friends described them as surprisingly in sync, sharing a love for foreign cinema, long conversations, and low-profile escapes to Europe. Still, the public never saw much beyond the surface. Solá rarely gave interviews, and Pacino, as always, kept details close to the chest. By 2015, the relationship ended quietly. There were no dramatic headlines or official statements, just distance and a mutual understanding that their paths were beginning to shift. Years later, when asked about her time with Pacino, Solá spoke with warmth, saying simply, "We loved in our own way." It wasn't a whirlwind or a spectacle, just a gentle, private story between two people who found quiet meaning in each other for a time. Israeli actress and singer Meital Dohan met Al Pacino in 2018 at a Hollywood industry event. Their connection was immediate, if unconventional, a magnetic pull between Pacino's weathered mystique and Dohan's vibrant, outspoken charm. The relationship drew swift media attention, largely due to their 39-year age difference. They appeared together at several public events, including the Los Angeles premiere of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where photographers captured fleeting smiles and subtle distance. Behind the scenes, their emotional dynamic was more complicated. Dohan, bold and unfiltered, brought energy into Pacino's life, while he remained characteristically guarded. In 2020, Dohan confirmed the breakup in a candid interview, citing the age gap as a central challenge. "It was hard to be with a man so old," she said, adding that while she loved him, their lives were simply too different. There was no bitterness in her words, only a kind of wistful honesty. For Pacino, it was another reminder that even late in life, love could still arrive, and still, just as easily, slip away. In 2022, Al Pacino entered headlines once again, this time not for a role, but for his relationship with film producer Noor Alfallah. At 83, Pacino's connection with the 29-year-old producer sparked widespread attention, not just for the age gap, but for what came next. The two were first seen dining in Los Angeles. Their pairing met with quiet speculation. Alfallah, known for her relationships with older, powerful men, remained poised and private. Despite media curiosity, neither spoke publicly in detail about the romance. Then, in mid-2023, news broke that the couple was expecting a child, Pacino's fourth. The announcement reverberated across tabloids and talk shows, with some calling it shocking, others simply unexpected. Their son was born in June, and for a brief moment, Pacino's world shifted toward late-life fatherhood. Friends described him as surprised but committed, showing up with a quiet steadiness that defied the headlines. Shortly after the birth, Pacino and Alfallah quietly separated. There was no public dispute, no accusations, just a transition. They agreed to co-parent, keeping the child at the center. The relationship, brief yet defining, marked a poignant chapter. A reminder that love, legacy, and the unexpected can find us even at the edge of a lifetime. Beyond the relationships confirmed by time and photos, Al Pacino's romantic history holds a shadowed corner, one filled with quiet rumors, passing connections, and whispered names. In the late 1970s, actress Veronica Cartwright was briefly linked to Pacino, though neither ever addressed the speculation. Penelope Ann Miller, his co-star in Carlito's Way, was also the subject of brief tabloid attention during filming, though it faded as quickly as it came. Diane Lane's name surfaced in the late 80s, but again, no confirmation ever followed. There were rumors of foreign actresses, one from an Italian film set, another from a Berlin festival, fleeting encounters that may have been nothing more than shared conversations at after-parties. In New York's theater scene, Pacino was quietly connected to a stage actress whose name never made it to the press, but who, according to insiders, remained close for years. Through the decades, Pacino's name appeared beside models, artists, and fellow performers. Some confirmed, many not. But unlike many of his peers, he rarely responded to speculation. His silence only deepened the mystique. What makes Pacino's rumored fling so compelling isn't the fame of those involved, but the intentional absence of clarity. In an industry obsessed with exposure, he mastered restraint, letting what's unseen carry its own weight. These stories, real or imagined, form the blurred edges of a life lived intensely, where not every connection became a headline, but many may have left their quiet mark behind the curtain. Al Pacino's romantic history is as layered and elusive as the roles that made him a legend. He never married, yet formed profound, lasting bonds with actresses, artists, and women who entered quietly and often exited the same way. Some relationships were intense and enduring, others brief flickers in the background of a cinematic life. Through it all, Pacino remained steadfastly private, never chasing headlines, never playing to the public eye. What emerges isn't a story of scandal or spectacle, but of a man who loved in chapters, not performances, who built quiet connections in a world obsessed with noise. And while the curtain may have closed on many of those romances, their impact still lingers. In quotes, in glances, in the spaces Pacino never tried to explain. But next up, Leonardo DiCaprio's legendary love list, and it's even wilder.